Hello there everyone, you've tuned in uxwbill and I'd like to welcome you to another one of my product review videos. However, this review video is actually different than any I've ever done in the past because this is a sponsored review from the manufacturer and distributor of the multifunction power generator that you're looking at right now. There will be more information, including links to purchase this item, down in the video description, so if you think this is something you would be interested in owning, by all means do take a look at those. While this is a sponsored review, I made it clear to the manufacturer of this product that I would only do a review on the condition that I was allowed to be 100% honest in my findings and could report accurately to you whether the product was good, bad, in between, where its strong and weak points are. I'm pleased to say, if you're looking for a quick review without going into terrible detail, that after spending 3 weeks using the various features of this multifunction power generator, that it is a very good product and it's well worth the purchase price if you happen to find yourself in need of such a thing. We'll take a look at all of its capabilities and I'll show you some of the things that it can do and the ways in which I tested it a little later in the video. But before we get into any of that, let's take a look at the brand name. I was a little unsure about the pronunciation that they intended for this, but I believe the correct way to say it is Webetop. Perhaps they were trying to say that this product is the best of its kind in the marketplace, and again, I would certainly have to agree with that. As far as the generator designation, you've probably noticed that this thing is quite small. There's no room in there for any kind of a motor or a generator setup or an internal combustion engine, and in fact it doesn't utilize any of those things. It uses a lithium-ion battery with a claimed 155 watt-hour capacity. I believe the battery rating of this unit to be very close to the actual truth. I tested it by taking a 100 watt incandescent light bulb and plugging it into this thing's built-in DC to 120 volt AC inverter. I then let it run until the battery was exhausted. I came in to check on it after about an hour and 20 minutes and I found that while the battery indicator was flashing to indicate that the battery was very near to exhaustion, the lamp was still running. So there probably is a little bit of a fib factor and some loss there due to inefficiency of the inverter. But again, I would say that the specification for the battery's energy capacity is very close to being correct. They also claim that the inverter can sustain a 100 watt load. It will actually run a little bit in excess of that, but there's not much headroom. If you exceed the inverter's capacity by, say, more than 30 watts or so, it quietly shuts down. Might be a little bit problematic if you're trying to run something like a motor or a load with considerable inrush current needs. You might have to try to start it a few times before this thing can run it. But the good news is you can do that, and the inverter circuitry seems to be very well behaved. We'll have a little bit of a demonstration of that a little later in the video. For right now, I'd like to take a moment and start with the beginning and the front panel controls. There are two of them. The one to the left turns on not only the battery capacity display, which indicates entirely in blue LEDs, it also serves to supply power to the other connections this thing has to power your various loads, such as these 3 USB ports, all of which are capable of high current charging. And what's more, you can have more than one high current device connected to these at a time. I tested to see where the maximum limit was, and I did not find it. I had 3 high current devices attached to these USB ports, and this thing handled them perfectly. Below that, you get 3 12-volt power connections. You could probably use those to power something like a portable air compressor or a tiny spotlight, something along those lines. I can't speak to how well those work or what their current limits are because I didn't really have any way to make use of them. And then there is a universal style power outlet up here that serves to allow you to connect up to 100 watts worth of load to the built-in DC to AC power inverter circuitry. Speaking of the power inverter, it can be turned on by pressing the button over to the right. Not only does this illuminate the battery capacity scale, it also turns on a red light to indicate that the inverter is running. And it's a good thing that they put that red light on there because even if you're operating in a no-load condition, the thing is still depleting its battery and could run itself down, leaving you in an inopportune situation a little further down the road. The USB ports, on the other hand, have to be turned on by pressing this button to the left. Not only does that serve to illuminate the battery capacity scale, which remains illuminated anytime the unit is providing power to anything, It is also necessary, as previously mentioned, to energize not only the USB ports but also the 12-volt outputs. It's here that I have noticed a little bit of a design issue, but one that, again, I find it very hard to blame anyone for having done things this way. If you attach a very low current USB device to this multifunction power generator, you may find that it won't stay turned on. I have found two ways to work around this limitation, both of which come at a slight cost to the efficiency and the battery life, but they're a compromise that you might be willing to make. You can not only turn on the power inverter, which will also energize the USB ports, you can also turn on the built-in flashlight. This is a single LED flashlight, comes with a fairly nice reflector. Does a pretty good job for what it is. A real dedicated flashlight is certainly brighter, but in a pinch, this thing is very capable of getting the job done. I'll go ahead and turn it on so you can see what it looks like. It is quite bright, especially to the camera's automatic adjustment perspective. Now, any of you out there in the viewing audience who happen to suffer from a photosensitive condition, you may want to skip the next 10 to 20 seconds worth of video, because the flashlight has not only the steady burning mode that you see here right now, it also has a flashing mode, which I will turn on right now. It doesn't flash in any particular kind, with any particular kind of meaning. It's not an SOS indicator. It's just a strobing lamp. Below the built-in flashlight, you have the connection for charging. Webetop supplies several different means by which this thing can be charged. They give you not only a household wall wart power adapter, they also give you means by which to charge it from the cigarette lighter in your car. And they make the claim that I have not personally tested that this thing contains an MPPT style, or maximum power point tracking, solar charge controller. So if you had a bank of solar panels of some description, you can certainly pick up a small solar panel inexpensively in a wide variety of places. These people may even carry one under their own name. You can connect that and use it. Below the power input for charging purposes, there is a small cooling fan. This only comes on when the inverter is operating under conditions of heavy load. Rather than being a load-controlled fan circuit, they used a thermal sensor. Unfortunately, it seems that the thermal sensor does not really have an adequate amount of hysteresis or desire to stay in one of the two states, running or not running, for a steady amount of time. It tends to cycle a little bit when you're on the verge of having the thing hot enough that it needs additional cooling. So you may find that it's a little bit annoying to listen to it, especially since the fan is fairly audible, if you're running with a load that kind of puts it right on the line of needing more cooling and being able to stay cool purely through convection-based means. So that's everything that you can do with this unit. The only thing I cannot tell you, I don't know if you can actually get a replacement battery for this when the built-in lithium-ion pack inevitably wears out. What I can tell you about the battery is that unlike a lot of lithium-ion battery packs that I have worked with, it handles the cold weather very, very well. This thing spent the day and the night in my truck. It was frequently taken down to below freezing temperatures, and at no point did it ever fail to deliver its proper rated capacity into anything that I needed. Here is a closer look at the light bulb I used to make my first tests of the inverter, and also to try and ascertain what this power generator's battery capacity was. Now, with the inverter turned on and connected to the lamp, we'll start with the 50-watt position on the bulb. As you can see, it powers up very nicely, works just fine. Step it up to the 100-watt setting. And again, there are no problems. And now we'll go for the grand prize. We'll try overloading the inverter, and you will see that after a moment or two it cuts out because there isn't enough headroom to power 150 watts worth of purely resistive light bulb. But nothing blew up, everything shut down in an orderly fashion, which is certainly what you want. Of course, light bulbs and similar resistive loads are very easily powered. Let's try something a little bit more difficult. Here's a small box fan that I've attached to the inverter output on the multifunction power generator. One could probably say that this is kind of an unfair test, that a more modern, and yes, I'm just itching to say absolutely wimpy fan would probably be more suited to operation from this unit's inverter output. Let's go ahead and start on the high speed with the fan, and we'll turn the inverter output on. And you'll see that it did try to start it, but it didn't quite make it. So we'll try again. It will start this fan on its high speed with some difficulty and repeated tries, but the better thing to do, since we don't need that much breeze and could probably get by with less, is just to turn the fan speed down and try starting it again. Seems there's a packing peanut in my fan. The fan also runs just fine on the low speed. More than one output at a time. Here I have not only the fan running, but I'm also charging my camcorder via its USB input. Even the built-in flashlight will happily operate at the same time as everything else. And while I'm sure it's probably not the best idea in the world to do so, you can in fact have a charger of any of the 3 types supported connected while you are powering loads. There the fan is, successfully running on its highest speed. It's just that the power generator won't actually start it. But that is a pretty tall order, especially for a fan with a hefty motor, at least as compared to the standards by which these things are manufactured today. Here's a demonstration of what the built-in cooling fan sounds like when it's operating. It is only switched on or off when in normal operation. It does not vary its speed. If the viewing audience would permit me a brief diversion into some rather nerdy subject matter, I'd like to take a moment and further investigate the multifunction power generator and its inverter's output waveform characteristic. Those of you with an ear for such things probably noticed that the motor in the box fan hummed a little bit more than it would have had I started it up from typical utility-supplied electrical power. At the time this video went into production, the product information page for the Webetop multifunction power generator indicated that the inverter had a true sine wave output characteristic. Unfortunately, this appears to be a typographical error based not only on the sound that the box fan's motor made when it started up, but also a careful inspection of the inverter's output waveform with my trusty scope meter. As you can see, it's your typical stepped approximation to a sine wave. That is to say, you have the positive going peaks that you can see on the screen right now, followed by a brief drop to a 0 level of output, and then the waveform goes back in the negative facing direction. It repeats this nominally 60 times a second, although the frequency is a little bit off right now. I think some of that is probably due to the scope meter more than anything else. Most any load that you can operate from this multifunction generator isn't likely to care even slightly about the output waveform, but you may find that some loads will overheat or labor or run sluggishly, not reach their rated operating speed, and may not function normally. So if there is a suggestion that I could make to the nice folks at Webetop, assuming they actually watch this video, which I'm hoping they would, they certainly asked me to present it to them, I would like to see them implement a true sine wave inverter into this power generator. Other than that, though, I think it's an excellent product. Of course, to a certain extent, that's something that only time will tell, and I will certainly update this video description, and I may even produce future videos demonstrating this unit's performance some months or years down the road. So certainly watch this space for more information, clarification, and updates over time. In the meantime, if you have made it through the entire video, I want to thank you for doing so. The folks at Webetop asked me to keep this to around 10 to 15 minutes. I would imagine I've gone way over time at this point because brevity simply isn't my strong suit. But I hope you found this review useful and informative if you are considering the purchase of this product. Again, I would highly recommend it, and as always, I am interested in hearing your constructive commentary down in the comments area, especially if you own one of these. Please feel free to chime in and let me know what you think of it and what your experiences have been.